Fear. Throughout human history, our idea of fear has dramatically changed. When speaking of fear in cinema, it's easy to see how silly old horror movies look to the modern eye. The dated sound effects, the fears of war, themes of bombs being dropped, or aliens invading and taking over Earth in their flying discs. This isn't even mentioning the old school obsession with goo. Where did that even come from? Anyway, one thing that seems to stick: the paranormal or supernatural. Things like demons from the underworld or ghosts haunting us from dark spaces. This fear of the unknown seems to be universal to all of us, but only when that unknown is hinted to be something more than just something unknown. You see, the story translates to real life experiences in the shape of ailments or natural disasters, the unknown dark spaces that we set aside until reminded of them by the loss of a loved one. When our daily living is overtaken by the rush of financial struggles and social obligations, we seek relief, stimulating ourselves to stay functional and to help us sleep. I don't mean to sound like one of those "Big Brother is watching" people, but instead focusing on how easy it is to forget that we aren't eternal. Let's take a look at this from an analytical and mythological lens. No worries for those that don't care for this, it'll only be a moment. Puer aeternus, Latin for the eternal boy. In Jungian psychology, the eternal boy is considered an archetype. As Jung states, an archetype is a primordial structural element of the human psyche. This basically means it's an aspect of human behavior and attitude that is universal regardless of socio-cultural and geographical differences. The eternal boy represents a boundless imagination that carries us into sometimes irresponsible decisions or situations, wandering from one thing to another. Think of it like Peter Pan, a young boy flying from one adventure to another, a fantastical flight detached from reality and order. Although fun and comforting, eventually we have to come back to reality to ensure our long-term well-being and assume responsibility. Not only for ourselves, but sometimes for those around us as well. The opposite of the eternal boy is the senex, Latin, meaning the old man. Nowadays, especially with us younger adults, we think of old men as grumpy or impatient, maybe even mean-spirited. But in mythology, and hopefully for those of us with a healthier experience, the old man is symbolized by calm, a man who is responsible and ordered. Our idea of fear is tainted in cinema as of recent. This idea of a loud noise or a sudden image appearing on screen in films. Nothing more than being startled and moving on after the movie's over. For something to instill fear, it has to make you feel beyond startled. It brings into consideration the horrors of the world. We all struggle with our own fears, whether they're rational doesn't really matter. To learn that our fears are irrational has no effect on the level of discomfort they bring. So what brings comfort when we're faced with fear? Love. This can either be easily interpreted by a neophyte as someone loving you or being in a relationship. But for the thoughtful or creative, it's more than that. Love is an emotional splash of colors expressed in every single human sense at once. Love is effectively interchangeable with creativity and the act of being expressive. To be creative is to express our entire being in an outward action, an effort to be heard, seen, cared for. For someone to recognize our creative endeavor is to be loved, to be cared for, and accounted for. An expression in any art form is a direct image of who we are. It is the very material that makes up our being. To find what allows us to turn our fears into creative expressions is effectively laying a path forward to the rest of our lives. An immaculate flood of cold waters, turned warm by the clashing hues of one individual into another. A beautiful display of the utmost vibrancies of humanity. The meeting of the ordered with chaos, the sun, wind, and stars uniting at once to create the totality of a divine image.